And you can't be critical of starting strength. Who are you to be critical of starting strength? Well, I'm just a schmuck, right? And you can do whatever you want. I'm going to talk about the program, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I think it's one of the worst programs for novices there is. It's one of the worst things you can do in the gym. And I'm going to go over a little bit why I feel that way. This is not an attack on Ripito as a person. I'm talking about the program, and I think it's a trash heap program. I think there's only one worse novice program out there, and I think that's Strong Lifts, which is a variation, a deviation, a derivation. It's So let me explain, because I know when I say it's a trash heap program, that upsets some of you, okay? And I want to explain, because I'm not just arbitrarily critiquing the program for the sake of critiquing the program or trying to create drama or anything like that. We need to analyze these programs reasonably, rationally. And saying something is a trash heap program is a pretty aggressive and controversial statement. I'm well aware of that. But I'm not using hyperbole. I'm not using hyperbole. I honestly believe, of all the programs out there, for somebody that wants to build muscle and strength, this is the bottom of the trash bin. Now, let me set the table and say, yes, it has squats. Yes, it has deadlifts. Yes, it has overhead press. Yes, it has bench press. These are all fine lifts. Yes, even power cleans or chin-ups. Really good ensemble of lifts. There's nothing wrong inherently with these lifts. I'm not anti-barbell. But I want to break things down, because most programs contain the same base lifts. Can we agree on that? Most programs contain the same base lifts. So generally, you guys have heard me in the past say, fuck your program. The programs don't matter. Programs generally don't matter, but I always put the caveat that they have to be reasonable programs, okay? They have to be reasonable. So the question is, if I consider this probably one of the worst choices for novices, because it is a novice program, it is a muscle and strength base building program, why do I consider it that to be that way when it has these big lifts in? Okay, so the first reason, and let me see if I can get a few bullet point actions here, is because it has an over-reliance, if we can type, on posterior movements right out of the gate. Now, let me explain. This might not make sense to any of you that don't coach for a living, and that's fair. But imagine for a second, you are my apprentice. You've been with me the last 10 years, okay? You have been sitting here, you've been watching form videos, coaching, thousands of people. You have been my apprentice. So what you see is that when you turn on the internet, nearly, you see these guys squatting and deadlifting big numbers, right? You see big numbers and pretty darn good form. And you have developed an appreciation for when form isn't really good. But most of what you see on the internet with the guys moving around the big numbers or impressive numbers, squats above 315, 400, deadlifts above 400, 500, 600, you see pretty good form. So what you tend to develop, because you have a blind spot, you tend to develop a blind spot. We don't think that possibly most people don't have good squat and deadlift form. But in coaching, I can tell you, and this is not a criticism, this is a reality, most people that come to me with form videos, and trust me, I see on a weekly basis over 1,000 videos. That's not an exaggeration. From my clients, from people submitting them, minimum 500. I see at least 100 videos a day, form videos a day. And anybody that doubts that, thinks I'm puffing things up or exaggerating, come on over to Team Massive, right? And I'll talk about my workday. I'll talk about my clients. My clients can submit videos every single day. And I have a pretty substantial client base. So anyway, when you look at these videos over a long period of time, what you realize is that most people don't have good squat and deadlift form. Not a criticism. They're not bad people, but you see on the internet, everybody has good form. All these big lifters are just crushing form. And then in real life, you see most people don't have good form. I have big lifters clients that I feature on social media that we have been working relentlessly on improving form on squats and deadlifts. So the point here is there's a disconnect. In the real world and not on the internet, most people, not all, we're not going to set an arbitrary percentage, most people need work on their squats and deadlifts to get anything appreciable out of them. So a lot of times on squats, you'll see knees in, high squats, all kinds of things. All the pressure, most of the pressure you see from these people is just hammering their lower back. They're not getting quad development, very minimal. They're not getting a lot out of their squats. Same with deadlift. Deadlift is a game of half inches. Bars a little bit forward, bars a little bit back, hips a little bit up, hips a little bit down. You have to be able to see in the matrix on the deadlift to understand the nuance to make adjustments. Okay? So when you take lifts like the squat and the deadlift, which are very technical, they're a lot more technical to learn, and some people are going to be dismissive and they're going to leave hate comments on this. And that's fair, but I'm just being honest with you. You don't see what I see. And that's not an insult. Most people need a lot of work to get their squat and deadlift to the point where they're getting quality value out of it for it to be a primary focus in a hypertrophy program, even in a strength building program. If you bring me 100 lifters today down here in the dungeon, and I get to work with them face to face, we're going to get them up to speed pretty quickly on the squat and deadlift, but it's still going to take time to build habits, to remove flaws. These are technical lifts that are unforgiving and will beat up the body. So when you take a group of novices and you make their primary focus technical lifts that take a long period of time to get down, meanwhile, their lower back, which is the weak body part in the chain, has to get up to speed. And that can take a year, a couple of years. You're going to, A, beat the living shit out of their lower back. B, put them in the position, because these are highly technical lifts that need time to semi-master. Because of that, they're not going to get a lot out of these lifts for quite a while. Not everyone. You might be lucky to get a lot out of your squats and deadlifts out of the gate, and great, that's wonderful. But at least, in my opinion, 70% of people won't be like that. It might be higher. So we take this workout and we have squats and we have deadlifts and we have squats and then we have power cleans. Now, power cleans are pretty technical, right? And it's another lift that's going to beat up your lower back. So we're basically left with bench and overhead. Now you might say, oh, chin-ups. Chin-ups are a great exercise. Chin-ups. The reality from coaching, twofold. Number one, chin-ups, if you're really, really on the lighter side of body weight, chin-ups are probably going to work pretty well for you. Probably. Most people that I see, especially in this day and age, struggle tremendously with chin-ups, okay? Chin-ups are inherently slow progressors for most people. They're not an easy lift. We can't just, this isn't 1972 where all men weigh 152 pounds in high school and can easily do 12 chin-ups. We're lifters. We're packing mass. We're bulking. Chin-ups are not easy for most people. Somebody's going to argue with me in the comments, but that's the reality. and you don't get a vote because I'm right. It's just what I see. It's what I see. And just be open-minded to understanding that maybe if chin-ups are easy for you, for the other 85% of people, they're not easy. So we're left with power cleans, which are technical. So 4 out of the 6 exercises we have here are a pain. Now, you could put in pendlay rows, which is good. That would be wonderful. Or even if you want to, a dumbbell row, which I would advocate. But then we're starting to clean up the program. And there's other variations of the program. So we're left with bench and we're left with overhead. Now, we have landed now. The second issue is we've landed in the arbitrary world of barbell only and fives. Fives are not magical. There's nothing wrong with them. But as a beginner, we probably need a little bit more volume, mechanical tension, time under stress. And some people are going to argue with me here as well. You guys can feel free to do whatever you want. I'm just presenting my side of the opinion. If you think my side of the story, my opinion, if you think I'm an idiot, that's fine. But we're doing no dumbbell work. Okay, we're all in cult of barbell. We worship barbells. We worship fives. We're getting kind of in this weird arbitrary place where everything has to be fives. Everything has to be a barbell. And the question is, why? Is that the best? Are fives the best for every lift? We can discuss it all we want, but I don't feel like we're getting enough work. A novice here needs a little bit more rep practice, more conventional rep ranges on the bench press and the overhead press. But we're splitting hairs. I don't care if you use a 3x5. I'm saying I don't think that's inherently anything we need to worry about, the best option for everybody, etc. So we're in the arbitrary world of barbell only and 5x5s. Now, I'm going to draw this out a little bit, and I appreciate you guys watching. Tune in. I'll try to make this quick. In the massive iron world, we talk about weekly volume, okay? If you're going to build a base, you need to build a hypertrophy, a muscle base to build future strength. So we're not just trying to execute strength increases right now because we're not narrow-minded. We're trying to build a muscle base for future strength. Now, you're like, we're building strength. We're strength builders. We don't need hypertrophy. We're strength builders, right? Wrong. Scientifically, we know that the biggest power lifters almost to a person, or the strongest power lifters almost to a person, are also the biggest power lifters, muscle-wise. This isn't speculation. This was floating around the toilet bowl, called the internet several years back. All the major chatterers and influencers were talking about it. You can go research it yourself. I made a video on it, and I don't have time to find it. But we do know that when they looked at power lifters, they found that almost to a person, the strongest power lifters were almost always the biggest power lifters. Does muscle build strength? No. Strength building is far more technical. You know, you have limb links and you have leverages and you have technique and you have all kinds of stuff. Muscle is a different game. But the muscle base is the platform. It is the framework that allows you to build for future strength. So if we are building a base for future strength, we need to have pretty much a well-rounded base. Now, you can go with this, which I'm about to dive into, or you can go with a more conventional method or a massive iron method. The massive iron method is we focus on building strength from head to toe, getting as strong as we can from head to toe, more of a shotgun approach in every part of the human body, every muscle group in the human body. So let's say your squats are good. Let's say your deadlifts are good. Okay, you have quads. You're lifting 3 times a week. So you're basically doing 9 sets of quads or 9 sets of squats for quads. Now, the issue here is no variation. I will argue that one of the cornerstones to building a solid strength and muscle base is a reasonable variation. Not doing the same lift over and over and over again, but including other lifts to a reasonable degree. We don't have to get obsessive about variation. But we need you just can't do one barbell exercise over and over again. So you might want to work in the leverage squat, the leg press, the hack squat, lunges, whatever. You need a little bit of variation. We want to hit the quads, not just a movement like squats. Yes, we want a big squat, but we also want to build big quads. So we want a little bit of variation. This variation will lend itself to better size increases because we're not just doing the same thing over and over again. Bigger quads will help you with things like the deadlift. So we have to kind of move beyond the arbitrary, we're only going to do squats, and get a little variation in the mix. So back, the deadlift is what I call a unicorn lift. It hits the upper back and traps very, very hard. But we're going to leave it out of the mix because many people don't like to believe that it works the upper back. But it does. We'll leave that as a topic for another time. So if we're working our back and we remove the deadlifts, we'll just rule out the power clean here. We're probably left with 3 sets of chin-ups, or maybe you decide to put pendlay rows or dumbbell rows. So we'll just leave back at 3. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Whoopsie doopsie. All right. Okay. And let me pop that up, roll that up, scroll that up. All right. Now for chesticles. Well, we're doing so that would be 4.5 sets per week because we're doing 3 workouts. Chesticles, we have the bench press every other workout. That would be 4.5 sets per week. Only the bench press, no dumbbells, no machine press, no dips, nothing. Now you could probably work in dips if you want to. We can look at variations, but then we're just trying to turn it into some other program that's really not. So delts, you have same thing, 4.5 sets per week. Okay. And you have no real direct arm work. You can work in curls if you want. No real direct arm work. No real direct anything else. Really it's a bunch of compound movements and isolations. Now, compounds are great for building mass, but depending on the structure of the program, they're going to be about 60 to 70% of your mass builders. You still need, and I hesitate to say isolation lifts because some of these aren't really isolation. You need things like close grip bents or seated press downs or, massive curls or, machine exercises that aren't isolations, but still provide a reasonable progression opportunity. So overall, leaving out deadlifts because they're controversial, we have or a unicorn lift. We have 13.5, we have 22.5 sets for what I call major areas of focus. Major areas of focus. So we have 22 sets for major areas of focus being these areas, chest, back, quads, and delts. We have no non-barbell exercises, really. No substantial. We have no variation. We just have a whole lot of nothing, right? Other than a couple of lifts that require you to technically spend a lot of time getting up to speed on. Now, if you were to do a more conventional strength and base building program, here's what I would advocate. I would advocate 4 workouts of 18 hard sets a day. This allows us some opportunity for variety. We get to work in dumbbell lifts. Now, dumbbell lifts are extremely important. they don't have the same technical disadvantage in general. We're generalizing that barbell lifts have. You have to learn a deadlift. It's going to take time. You have to learn a squat. It's going to take time. It's going to beat up your lower back. But you can use some deadlifts or use some dumbbell exercises, dumbbell rows, dumbbell bench, dumbbell overhead. Dumbbells are great for hypertrophy. There's no downside to adding in dumbbell work in addition to barbell work. So you could do dumbbell bench and barbell bench. What downside is there? Why are we being reductionist? Why are we removing tools? Wouldn't you say that if we're doing the bench, there's a potential benefit from adding in maybe dumbbell bench, maybe incline dumbbell bench, maybe dips, a little bit of variety? I would say 100%, in my opinion, and this is something I would go to war over, that program is always going to be better for building a broader, stronger, wider base. More tools. It's not taking more time. Why wouldn't we? So in the massive iron world, if we do 4 workouts of 18 hard sets, we're going to look at 12 sets of quads per week, and maybe 3 to 6 or 4 to 6 or whatever you want of squats. So we're reducing the focus on squats, which are very technical and hard to learn, take time to master. And we're working in some other exercises that can build your quads. I'm going to consider this a bonus. Now, in the massive iron world, we're looking at 12 sets of back, excluding deadlifts. If you want to include deadlifts in this mix, go right ahead. But we're looking at a dumbbell row or a barbell row or a pendlay row or a T-bar row or a seated cable row. And then we're getting into things like the lat pull down for people that can't do pull-ups or chin-ups yet. And a lot of other back exercises, the chest supported row, the seal row, a lot of good back building exercises. So we're tossing that onto the fire, okay? And chest, we're going to move that up to 12 sets of chest per week. We're going to throw in a dumbbell variation, maybe dips, maybe a machine chest press, maybe a barrel press, whatever. We're going to beef up our attack, and same with delts. Now, for those of you guys that don't want to train 4 days a week, we can reduce it to 3 days a week, and we can reduce these down to 9, okay? And we're going to have more variety. We're going to have a broader base, a broader plan of attack. We're not going to over-rely or put all of our eggs in the basket of posterior lifts, which take time to learn for most and beat up the lower back for most. And not only this, but we're building a broad base, which is going to allow us a platform to build future strength because we're building more muscle. So that is my reason for not using starting strength. Okay. And I will receive some hate. I will receive some general starting strength is GOAT. But I do not find with any program, starting strength aside, if we rely only on one type of piece of equipment, a barbell, called a barbell, or we rely on arbitrary rep schemes for everything like 5s, the demands of every exercise are different. 6 reps might feel better for you on pendlay rows than 8. Dips, you might like 8s, you might like 10s, you might like 12s. Okay? So the cornerstone of long-term training is to evolve training based on needs. What's happening in the gym? I'm not just going to stick to some arbitrary program and say 5s are holy of holies and stick to that no matter what. I might get in the gym and find out I like 6s on bench or the 3s protocol or whatever. Lastly, as an end cap, linear progression, not linear periodization, which is a different thing and it's very viable. Linear progression is arguably the worst form of progression you could use because it has a very limited opportunity. You can't simply add 5 pounds every week. Now, if you don't want to do that on starting strength and you want to modify it to do, to a different progression opportunity or progression approach, by all means. But linear progression, and I stand by this, and this is a hill I will die on, is absolutely the worst, most common used progression opportunity, because you become focused on trying to add 5 or 10 pounds every week to a lift. That's not sustainable. It has a very short window, and you're going to run into a wall very, very quickly. Now, I know that was a long ramble, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, but I wanted to give this due diligence and comb through these things. You guys can use whatever you want. I'm on your side. I don't care what you do as long as you train hard. But consider the points I made, that there might be better options that aren't as arbitrary.